Hi Vanessa, the girl on a bike. I'm in the middle of the desert in Africa, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the KTM 450 RFR Rally Replica and telling you why I think it's possibly the best bike I've ever ridden. Ah! So here he is, this is Big Buddy. Now if you've been following me on my other social media channels, you'll have seen some of the escapades that we've already been up to. Now he is a 2021 KTM 450 RFR Rally Replica. So as far as the paperwork goes, this bike is the bike to go and do extreme desert racing on. You've probably heard of the infamous Dakar Rally. This is the sort of specced out bike that the guys and girls are doing that sort of racing on. But if you look at the rally world, you'll see a lot of people on a lot more affordable bikes. An enduro bike built up into a big rally bike. And when you start to look at a full rally replica like this, you are going to be looking at a lot more coming out of your bank account. They're typically going for around £32,000, euros, and that is a lot of money for an engine with two wheels. And as a rally racer myself, so a little bit of background as to why I feel like I can stand here and give you an opinion about this bike. I definitely questioned, is it worth the money? So racing wise, I'm here at the Morocco Desert Challenge right now, which is the second biggest rally raid in the world. It's an 8-day moving bivouac into the desert, upwards of 450 kilometre a day race. You're following roadbook navigation, which is up on the handlebars here. You can check out what that is in one of my other videos. And you are basically trying to survive extreme conditions in the desert right here in Africa. This is my 6th desert race. I've done 2 Qatar Bahas, Rally de Morocco, Tunisia Desert Challenge, which nearly killed me. Check out that video if you want to know why. Campfires in the desert in the dunes at night isn't romantic, just so you know, it's terrifying. So watch that on the other video. And I've also done 1,000 Dunas on the Tiger 900 Rally Pro. So I've done a few desert rallies now, including a Dinaric rally in Croatia, which is a bit more of a European style rally. So I feel like I can give you a bit of an opinion of this bike because across those rallies so far, I've ridden a Honda CRF 450 Enduro Cupped Up. I've ridden a Beta 480 off Desert Rose Racing, which again is rallied up, but that actually had a tower. And the position of the tower does change a lot of the dynamics. Enduro Cup is when all of this kit is mounted to the handlebars and you get that weight on your handlebars versus being on a tower, which gives you the freedom to have a little bit less weight and vibration on the bars. And I've also done one of those rallies on a KTM 450, again, Enduro Cupped Up. This is my first experience on what I want to say is a big girl bike. I don't like the whole big boy bike because girls can ride too, by the way. He's called Big Buddy, and that's mainly because I really like the name Buddy for a motorbike. You build a relationship as you're racing, and I already have a Buddy, my hard enduro bike that I did Red Bull Maniacs on. So he's Big Buddy because he's well big. Key things that are going to make you think about the size of him: he's got 33 litres of fuel. I believe it's 18 up front in a dual tank with 2 fillers at the front, another one at the rear. And I actually think the fuel tank, which I'll get onto in a bit, is probably one of the most intimidating things about this bike for me as a rider. Now, my first impressions of this bike really is a big bike. It's a size. When you get off an adventure bike, which I have ridden, I've actually done dunes in Morocco on an adventure bike, which was brutal. I don't recommend it. He doesn't feel quite as big. But when you're used to being on an enduro bike, he is a big bike. I believe he weighs in around 176 kilograms. And that's a lot of weight when I'm only 62 kilograms. But the way KTM have designed him, I do feel like he actually carries his weight really nicely. A lot of the weight on the fuel, you can see down here, is quite low. He's very stable. And I actually feel as though he's kind of like an ox. Not because like oxes are big and cumbersome and maybe not that fast. They can actually be really quick, but he's solid. With the suspension that he's got on him, he plows through things. Now this video is not a spec video on all of the different details about the millimeters of this and the size of the discs. You can read that. This is about how it feels, what it's like to actually be out in the desert on that bike. And for me, I'm absolutely head over heels in love on this bike, and I would not go into a desert rally again willingly without being on a Rally Replica bike like this, because it's like a glove. When you get on this bike, it just fits. You stand up and the riding position is comfortable, it's balanced, it's stable. When you're riding along, I would be looking at the terrain and seeing this rock and that rut and all of these different things. And on an enduro bike, they kick you and buck you. Even with the right suspension setup, you're feeling a lot more, where because of how he's balanced, maybe the suspension, the size of him, he just kind of pushes through things and gives you so much more stability and confidence. Something that really helps with that is obviously the steering damper that's up in here, which is going to give you a lot more control of the bars when you are pushing into things. It gives you less of a kick, which is really good for fatigue. The engine is really, really friendly. Now, my Honda CRF 450, the only way I can describe him is an angry, angry animal. He's like, ah, we want to have loads of fun, and I'm screaming at you, my glasses are falling everywhere. But there's no like calm mode. He's just angry, which is awesome. And actually, I think it made me ride more aggressively, but it's really fatiguing because he's so like aggressive. I actually think this guy has more power, but he's got a smooth delivery. Now, I have done a couple of modifications to this bike. I would say one of them is absolutely essential if you have any love for this, your butt, and that's the seat. So I've got a Caulfield design leather seat on it. I actually got my logo embroidered on the back, which is very fancy. You're looking at about £400 for one of these seats, but it is the difference between you losing your skin at the end of the week and not. My bum isn't tired at all, and on previous rallies I've honestly had a bit of blood on my bum. So I'm one of those people that shares the truth, the reality, so there you go, have it. Well worth the money. Hand guards. Now, I didn't swap out the original hand guards, and unfortunately on day 4 of the rally I had a drop which cracked it. And the service ones have a stronger frame, so actually I would recommend doing that before you even go into your first race. Now, I did have Desert Rose Racing give the whole bike a good once over before I came into the desert. They've done all kinds of things. I won't go through the full list. Ziplock wire on all of the bolts so that you can make sure that you can see really easily if something's moving, going through greasing all of the bearings, tightening things up, and basically just making sure that he's in top spec to go into the desert. One of the reasons why I really do rate the Rally Replica is that this bike is designed for the sort of load that you're going to put on it through the desert. Intense, hot, long days. Lots of time in sand where you're on the revs in quite a top gear, powering on. And the smaller enduro bikes, basically, eventually you're going to have heart attacks. The manufacturers are honest in saying that's not what they're designed for. They don't willingly support you building big rally bikes out of them. And I'm not saying they can't handle it. I've done dunes on those bikes, but this bike is designed for it. And when you get into those dunes, I was so nervous going into them. Big bike, he's like a dead elephant when he's on his side, seriously. Love you, big buddy, but he's heavy. But he's almost easier to not drop him because he's so smooth and flowy and balanced, and he just felt amazing. I got back into the bivouac, having left the bivouac pretty much having a nervous breakdown about the fact that Tunisia round 2 was going to happen. I got back into the bivouac being like, I'm in love, he's amazing. It wasn't quite that. It was a bit of an emotion and tears because I finished the day as well. Things like the stump guard are on there as standard. Now, I've seen a lot of people putting on big, heavy, substantial subs on them. I personally don't want the extra weight. Now, this carbon fiber one that it comes with is pretty darn protective. That's what I'm running with it. If it breaks, I'll replace it. And you can put a heavier one on there, but there's always that balance between the weight, the cost of replacing, the fatigue you're going to have from a heavy bike. And I'm not made of money, but I need every bit of help I can get out there with a heavy bike, so I run it as standard. Foot pegs are one that I've definitely changed. Now, these are cross-country ADV pegs. They're slightly wider, slightly longer, and give you a little bit more support on your feet. And the main reason for that is fatigue. They're something I really enjoyed on my Honda, so I've put them on there. So that's cross-country ADVs, and they also do a little custom printed frame here, just so that I don't take the little orange paint off that with my leg. Tyres and wheels are a good one. I did try and get Talon custom wheels made. I've got the front on there, as you can see, with my little red nipples there. these ones. And I got my little logo printed. I like the blingy bits sometimes. The main reason to have that is so that I have 2 sets of wheels, which when you're riding for 8 days, it's much easier for my mechanics desert rows to swap wheels over and then change tyres in the day when I'm racing. But Talon couldn't get a hub for the rear, so I've got the standard OEM on the back, and to be honest, the standard OEM's made for the bike, so there's no dramas there. I've got the Michelin Desert tyres on, and they are one that I've used on quite a few races now. I definitely rate them for the fact that they are durable. When you hit the sand, they kind of act like a paddle. They've got good grip. The Michelin mediums I've also run in the desert, and I find that they're maybe a little bit more grippy on the corners because of the knobs on them, but you do wear them out a little bit faster. And the desert tyres with the desert mousse gives you a lot more durability. If you think about the mousses inside, the mousse fatigues with heat, and the desert mousse is designed to handle the heat of the desert, so that's a really important part. I've got the full roadbook system up on top. Now these bikes come with all of the wiring looms and everything in there. It's got a really tidy little fuse box. It's probably worth showing you the fuse box. Actually, this is one of the things that I quite like about these bikes. They're designed to be practical for if you have an issue out in the desert. So I'm just trying to find the little dangly thing. Seat comes off, no tools at all, fantastic. Now in here we've got the air filter, which you can see is a little bit dusty, but up top here there is a beautiful little fuse box, all of the names of all the systems. So if I'm out there and I've got a problem, it's a very easy access diagnosis to pull one out, and the spares are in there, swap it out. I've got my little C-Tech charger dongle in there because he lives on a trickle charger in the garage. This tub is a good thing to know. This is your tool storage, and it does lift out. Now the KTM comes with a very substantial little toolkit. I've got some spare bolts, the flare and cable ties, etc. in there. Comes with a really substantial but lightweight toolbox, the stuff that you need, but look how compact that is. It's got a little handle in here that it sluts into so that you can then get more, more leverage. And that's actually all the tools that I carry, and I think it's clever that that comes with the bike and is so light, because on previous bikes that I've done races on, I've had to carry the tools in my rucksack, which again adds to your fatigue. The other safety equipment that I have to carry in rallies is a first aid kit and emergency kit. They are actually cable tied up in here. That's things like your lighter, your compass, heat blanket or cool blanket, plasters, eye wash. There you go, first aid kit. Okay, something to do with the engine that is worth bringing up. His power is quite high in the rev window, which means he kind of feels like you're revving or riding him at about 1500 higher than a normal enduro bike. So when you first get on it, you feel like you're like, rah, wriggling his neck a little bit, but he likes it. And that power is just like there. And for me, when you're riding along and you can just feel him grrring, he's like, yeah, we're riding. I don't know, I really like it. So you just get used to the fact that you're just riding it's not necessarily more aggressively, but it is a little bit more aggressively. You're having to use the gears a little bit more, and his gears are really strong. So like actually in some of the dunes where you're up, down, and you're coming over the point, can you go over, and diagonally and all of that, I'm in second gear most of the time, and he's just like pop, 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 so smooth, not having to change gears between the peaks and the in-betweens. He just feels lovely, whereas I think on my enduro bike, I was having to shift gears in the dunes, which just adds to your fatigue. So yeah, beautiful engine, beautiful engine. Something that I really hate about this bike, and it's quite a strong hate, KTM, listen, do something about it please, is this goddamn kickstand. Like at the moment, he's on a rock, but he's on the flat, and he shouldn't be looking like he's about to fall over, but he is. It's just the wrong length, and it's wobbly, and it seems to bend, and sort it out, just sort it out. Is there anything else that I haven't talked about on this bike? I think the most important thing to mention on this bike is how good he feels. He gives me confidence even though he's really big. He helps with my fatigue, he's powerful, he's stable, he's reliable because he's designed for this kind of terrain. Now he's got a really big price tag. There's no avoiding that. But when you're going into these races, to put it into context just a little bit, and I don't really want to bring it up, 2 people have not survived the desert this week. this racing is really extreme, and having an issue out in the dunes, no matter how good the organisation is, how many helicopters they have, how quickly you can hit that emergency button, there is a risk going out into the dunes, and having the right equipment that you can rely on and put your confidence in is a huge part of your confidence on the start line and getting to the finish line. And I think that's something that Big Buddy has really brought to my riding. I'm absolutely buzzed by riding him. I can't wait to get back on him tomorrow. I've got 2 more days here at the Morocco Desert Challenge, so you can check out the full race video on my channel as well. Right, I have finished stage 7. When I started this video, I'd finished stage 5, but I realized there are a couple of things that are really, really important to me that need to be in this video. So, change of scene, here we go. I'm now in the Mazuga Dunes and we've got stage 8 of the rally tomorrow. So, continuing to talk about Big Buddy, the Rally Replica. So the first thing that's really important is that I'm not sponsored, supported by KTM in any way at all. This is my bike. I own this bit and this bit and this bit and this bit, and I own the whole thing, and I bought him with my own hard-earned money because I genuinely believed this is the next bike to take my rally riding to the next level. And now, being on stage 7 of the Morocco Desert Challenge, oh my goodness, please make the finish line tomorrow, Vanessa. I can already tell you that I've head over heels fallen in love with this bike. It's got to be the best bike I've ever ridden. So everything that I'm telling you in this video is seriously, seriously hand on heart. My own money, pocket, bank, whatever, has bought this bike, and there's no anything there. I'm just putting that out there. I also forgot to mention the suspension on this bike. Now, the geometry of the bike is part of the reason why this bike is so stable. So it's got a longer wheelbase, which gives it a bit more stability, and it's got a slacker geometry. There we go. Gosh, I am in the middle of a rally, so excuse my brain. And the combination of that helps you with the stability. Now, I've had my suspension tweaked for my body weight. It's a really important thing when it comes to any motorcycle that you're riding off-road. Make sure that your spring ratings in both the front and the rear are right for your weight. Typically, I believe a KTM comes with suspension that's right for anyone from like an 85 to a 95 kilo rider. I'm 62, don't quote me on that, but do your homework for your bike. I'm a 62 kilo rider plus my kit, which means if I was to ride this bike with the stock springs, it would be like a rodeo bull. I have way too much energy for in the middle of a rally. I'm obviously doing good nutrition. Anyway, so I've had all that tweaked and changed, and that's a really important thing to do with your bike. And you can get on a bike that's standard and say, oh, that's got shit suspension, just because you haven't sorted the suspension out for your riding. And I would say when I first did the suspension on my enduro bike, Buddy, this is Big Buddy, Little Buddy, I probably was 20 or 30% faster just from getting my suspension right. The next thing that's really important about this bike that I mentioned earlier in the video that I thought was really intimidating is actually the fuel tanks. So we've got 33 litres of fuel going on here, 2 fill-ups at the front, 1 at the back, and you've got 2 fuel pumps. So up on the handlebar, you have a switch, and that's going to switch the bike between your front tank and your rear tank. It's right here, and you can do it seamlessly riding along. So actually, if your tank runs out, before the bike cuts out, you'll hear it going, oh, I'm thirsty, and you can switch it and move to the other tank. But if you think about the 33 kilos of fuel that this bike can hold, if you're not using your fuel correctly, you're going to unbalance the bike. But you can also unbalance the bike purposefully to help your riding. For example, if you're going to be going into the dunes and the sand here, having a slightly heavier back end to support you getting a heavy back and a lighter front, using and distributing that weight is going to help you out. But in other situations where, say you're in a really rocky path and you have a heavy back end and a light front, you could end up being bucked. So you kind of want to do a little bit of a, make sure you're doing your homework before your day's riding to understand what the organisation is putting you through so that you can manage your fuel consumption appropriately for the riding. Now, I honestly, I'll be honest, I lay in bed awake at night before this rally trying to panic about how I was going to do my fuel and as if I was going to run out and how much fuel did I need. And actually it's really simple. You just kind of think about the terrain, work out the mileage, think about how much fuel you want, because 33 litres of fuel on a 200k day isn't necessary, so you can run your tanks a little bit lighter. Now, something I'm going to do before my next rally, this tank does actually have some transparent sections on it where you can see how much fuel is in there, and also down here. What I'm going to do back at home in slow time is 1 litre at a time fill my tank up and put visual marks on the outside of the tank so that I've got an easier way to monitor my fuel consumption, and then be able to more appropriately run less fuel, which is less weight, because when he's on his side in there, he's like a dead elephant. Anyway, I'm pretty sure that is about everything that I want to talk about on this bike. You probably got the idea that I'm a little bit in love. I think he was a bit of a dangerous purchase, because now I'm even more addicted to the desert, and I already can't wait to come back. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments, any thoughts. Have you ridden a rally replica? What do you think? Have you done stuff on an enduro bike? Have you built your own rally bike? Let me know what your rally story is. I'm Vanessa Ruck, the girl on a bike, here at the Morocco Desert Challenge, and I've got one more stage to go. Fingers crossed I make the finish line, and check out that video on my channel too.